everybody, welcome back. This is After Dark. I'm A. This is Adam. Today we're actively participating in Sabbat. Which is to say, I'm going to be asking Adam a series of questions about his interim and possibly next election, unless that's spoilers and I'm not supposed to say that out loud, Adam.
No, that's fine.
Cool. We're going to be participating, again, in active propaganda. I'm going to be asking him your questions through the Discord, and asking some of my own questions, because I have questions, of course. With that being said, do you want to jump right into it, or do you want to do a small introduction on the core basis of this video?
Sure. No problem. So for those of you who don't know, and I don't imagine who that would be at this point, I was Sabbat Coordinator for One World by Night from 2010 to roughly 2017. Then I retired after pretty much accomplished everything I wanted to do at the time. Stayed on Team Sabbat. Then I've been serving under Jackie first, then Shane, and then Matt after myself as Sabbat Coordinator. So I've always kind of stayed on the team, had a presence, had my opinions and thoughts as they are asked for. I will say that this is a special election in that Matt had to step away for real life reasons. I do wish him the best, and I do want to thank him for everything he did do for the org and the genre. I think everyone should. But during that time, I have been appointed the interim Sabbat Coordinator. Elections are opening probably now-ish when this video opens up. And yeah, so I decided to run again. I had planned to anyways in 2026. That was nothing against Matt. I just generally had a lot more creative ideas and things I thought we could do with Sabbat genre that I was interested in doing. No other real alternative motive, though, if anyone thinks I did, it's really not. That it seemed like fun again. And I had ideas. That was kind of like largely it. But I'm happy to be back, and I'm your Sabbat Coord. Bow before me. Yeah.
Wow, the core of being a core, having fun and having ideas. Truly. I say this facetiously. I feel like a lot of these questions need to be answered, and for other candidates, feel free to reach out to me if you also want to do a segment like this. 10 out of 10. So I'm just going to jump into the questions now. First one off, we actually don't have names attached to these, so you know who you are. Since your last time in office, there's been a lot of opportunity to reflect. What is something that you want to do differently from your last run as Sabbat Coordinator?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of put this at the start of my application. I used a wrestling quote, believe it or not, which had to do with CM Punk and Triple H, and those are two notorious wrestlers that did not get along like in real life. And then them coming back together like 10 years later after the fact. The reason why I use that is the quote is effectively like, hey man, if you haven't changed in 10 years and I haven't changed within 10 years, something horrible has happened and we've kind of failed at life. So it's been realistically close to 10 years since I've done this job. What would I do differently? Well, here's a big difference. When I started, I was 26 and now I'm 41. When I was 26, I cared way more about One World by Night and LARP in, I would say, an unhealthy manner in regards to like LARP life. Things would definitely set me off if I thought your interpretation of genre was wrong and that I'd have to correct you on that. And it was my way or the highway. Which, sometimes is an unfortunate necessity, but it should be a rarer thing. I will say I've mellowed out a lot. I've gotten married. I've got a house. I've got a dog. I've got a life. I do a lot of other things now. I write. I play Warhammer. I play D&D. I didn't play D&D back then.
Is Warhammer a part of you maturing? Is that this Warhammer one of the contributing factors? You're right next to getting like a mortgage in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a lot more discipline when you're just focused on painting minis. So what I would do differently, I plan to do fundamentally much of the same of what I did before, structurally speaking, from an admin perspective, right? So I'm very big in that it is Team Sabbat, not Adam Sabbat. The team does everything together. Some court offices operate very differently. I was always big on, if you send something to me that is going to the whole of the team. There's no segmented parts like, oh, you get this secret thing, you get this secret thing. Everything goes to the team. We all discuss it, and at the end of the day, I'm a district manager who has to make the call out of the various opinions. And I want opinions that are contrary to my own so that we can, test them, right? To see, like, is this the best way to go? Is this the best resolution? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, right. Sabbat nowadays is it has a massive amount of both players and different subgroupings, both from the packet and newly made Coord, or for example, the ground. With that amount, how do you not get things lost in the weeds, right? Because it's very easy to give one specific group a lot of attention and focus, while having a massive team with the right people with things jumbled. How do you make those enable to everyone on the team without getting it overcomplicated and jumbled and accidentally too much attention?
Sure. So anyone that has ever worked a corporate job and has to manage a team will understand the tools that are necessary in order to accomplish this. It's a lot of team management, calendar building, calendar schedules, and your job is to stay on top of people and make sure things are equal between those different divisions, right? So you don't want to just run like an occult underground plot and screw everyone else. If you're going to run an occult underground plot, you need to be running a loyalist plot, a moderate plot, an ultra-conservative plot. And then when I say plot, I don't mean like world-ending bad guy to fight. Like anything can be a plot, right? Like the occult underground, there's a mysterious tome in this country you have to go find. That's a plot. Ultra-conservatives, there's this group of vampires that are interested in converting to the Sabbat and joining your army. What do you do with that? Like these are just minor things that you can do. So the goal is you always want to have them be active, and in my experience, if there's no plot in the sense that I've described it, players get really bored and don't have anything to talk about, and then those factions don't get active. They get just kind of stagnate. So that falls on me as the coordinator, is to staying on top of my subcoords to make sure they are active and driving the goals and vision of the office forward constantly. Anyone that knows me that I have a ridiculous response time when it comes to emails, usually within like 24 hours. Inbox emails that are unread bother me, which is why I'm probably very good at my job. So I tend to stay on top of things pretty hard. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, a part of the core job is staying on top of it, right? Though I'd say it's the bare minimum as opposed to the rest. Speaking of some of the subjects that you brought up in conversation, because we've talked a little bit about individual groups with like mini plots or something around those lines. Do you have any immediate creative goals, such as like OWBN plot, either Sabbat plot or national plot across the sex? You retired for a while, so I was wondering what you're planning for the future creatively, if we could have a little bit of tidbit of it, if you do have something planned.
Yeah, I do. So I say I retire, but I always like to refer to myself as like an elder statesman retired, in that I was always still doing stuff and writing plots for other offices because I enjoy the creative endeavor. I'll say
so
this.
Many hats.
I've always had so many hats, but that's because I've enjoyed it, right? Like, so a lot of people think, we'll talk to that point first, is a lot of people think that like I'm super busy in all of these offices. I'm really not. If the Coord needs something for me to do, I'll just go do it, and it takes me about a week to bang it out. It's not hard. You tend to use it also, again, as a creative endeavor, in that I write a lot of stuff, and I'll send it to Coords and be like, I think this is cool. What do you think? And 9 out of 10 times they won't use it. And it sits in a giant folder on my desktop of like unused One World ideas. But that 1 out of 10 will make it through. And it's just for stuff that I think is neat and cool and would be helpful to the org. As to your question for plots in general and that sort of thing, it's 6 months until 2026. I do not plan on running any major plots until next election. If I get elected, the answer to your question is yes. I have some very cool plots, I think. I'm running one currently for the Ravnos Coord's office that some of you may be aware of. That has, and I like to weave my plots together, so there will be threads and little drops in that plot that'll lead to a greater plot sort of idea. And again, it's my goal on the plot in the future that I want to do is not, how do I say this, end of the world, big bad guy fight. And that, will there be fights? I'm sure there will be. Will there be bad guys to beat? There always is. Is that my fundamental goal? No. My goal with the upcoming plot, if you want a little bit of a spoiler, if, again, I get elected and I prop it and this passes, it's like 20 steps, right? Is to have the Sabbat I don't want to say refocus, emphasize the dark religious aspects of it more and make the Sabbat question its own faith.
Very much neo-Gothic, in a way. Though I suppose all of Sabbat is neo-Gothic. As you said, it's more emphasizing it. You mentioned leaving a little bit of like tidbits in other plots. Is it a prerequisite to be a part of those plots to participate in this one? Should you get reelected?
No, not at all. I just consider those things like cool little Easter eggs that if you'd played them both, you'd be like, oh, that might. I think that was a thing he referenced in the other plot. I do this
like video game sequel. Stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I did this in Coney, right? When I wrapped up 25 years of Coney plot in our last season. It was literally, I had to go through 25 years of Coney plot, and for those players that, I'm going to say that have been here for 25 years, I don't know how many player that's been here for like 25 years, but I've had players that are here for like 15 years, and they were recognizing things in that plot that was like, oh my god, that's part of something Adam ran 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, you get it. Yes, I did do that. Go ahead.
I asked because we've gotten a slow influx of newer players to Sabbat, very much exploring their ideas, either in Coney or in POL or live, such as in games like Games Chosen or Fort Myers. How are you going to rope in those newer players into Sabbat genre if you are going to make to do so? Sabbat is very daunting as a genre. It's a lot easier when you're a player and you have all this knowledge. It's a lot harder when you're stepping your foot in and you are blasted with different factions, different ideas, your core Sabbat pack. So do you have any ideas to help them sort of opt into Sabbat genre itself? Or are you going to let it be and see, have them put out individually their ST?
So yes, sort of to your last point, right? My plan is on the Team Sabbat Discord. I'm going to create a new role and a new section for Sabbat STs, and I'm going to effectively treat them like mini subcords, and that they're going to be the first to get stuff from the office. If they have direct questions to the team for like, hey, I need this support for these new players, we can respond pretty much instantaneously. That way we can give them the max amount of support, because I do believe that, I can try reaching out as much as I can on a personal individual level, but I'm not going to hit every single player. I think doing these videos and this series with UA is a great benefit of sharing that information, people getting interested, asking questions. So you got to hit it from every avenue possible. And I think the best part of doing that, or the best way of doing that, is through the STs, like you said. If it's going to trickle down from the STs, from me, to your players is the best way to do it. If I just show up into your game and go, hi, I'm your Sabbat Coord, this is what you're going to do, that's not going to work. The STs know those players far better than I ever will in, say, like, California. I live in Connecticut. I'm never, probably not going to meet you. I'm sure your character is really cool, but your HST is going to know way more about it. So I want to empower those STs with the tools that they need, because they're going to know far better than I am.
All right, so you're taking more of a support approach, and I appreciate that. Let's talk about let's actually expand on the idea of support. One of the questions we have that was asked was about modernizing the Sabbat Discord. Do you have any ideas for that? And after that, we're going to start getting into some of the harder questions, I'd say.
Yeah, sure. So step one is the Sabbat faction Discord is going to change. It is no longer going to be the Sabbat faction Discord. That is going to be the OWBN Sabbat Discord. That is where I want centralized data and information. I'll be cleaning it up like crazy, rooms that don't need to be needed or used. I want to promote it for IC areas in general, not just factions, OOC general areas, that sort of thing. If you've been on the Coney Discord recently, we did like a huge overhaul and cleanup. I'm kind of seeing how that goes because we enabled the community feature, which offers a lot more options and visibility for people outside of One World by Night to come discover your Discord server, which means it could be a way to attract new players who don't know anything about us. But first, I'm going to see how that goes in Coney, and if I'm like, okay, no, this thing is awesome, I would enable it for the Sabbat faction Discord. But immediately, it'll be overhauling it to being the Sabbat Discord instead of the Sabbat faction Discord.
All right, yeah, and I think that's honestly for the best. As much as even I like the old format, a lot of the new modern things with Discord that don't include AI are very helpful. Don't mind me sneaking my own propaganda in there. That's crazy. So now let's talk about the elephant in the room. And I say elephant with a capital E, the Inquisition. A lot of players are very disgruntled with how it's been run this year, as much as we appreciate Matt and what he's done as Coord. What are your plans for the Inquisition, right? And this breaks down, a lot of players are unhappy with how the storyline is going. What do you plan to do with it in your interim and possibly at your re-election?
Okay, great question. So to start with, I wasn't at that ecumenical council. I am not on Team Inquisition. I am not CC'd on those emails, those scenes, but I do hear enough from the players that there's a problem, right? There's enough people talking about it that there's a problem there. So step one, if I get elected during this period, and this is my primary focus of this term, is actually going to be the Inquisition, and I say term within the 6 months period. Step one is I need to gather information. I need to see these scenes. I need to see these emails. I need to talk to people. I need to talk to Todd, get every perspective I possibly can, and get as much information on the history as what has occurred. Once I've assembled that, my plan is to assemble a team of individuals, which includes myself, Lex, Jimmy Rickett, because he's a great writer, Todd, and probably Derek. And we're going to have a Zoom meeting where we are going to hash out, review, this is what's going on, what are our options? And then we're going to go through each option, which we think is the best pathway forward. Again, you have to test each one of those theories. Like, okay, if we do this, this is what's going to happen, or most likely to happen. You'll never know what the players are going to do. I've been asked, am I going to kill Maria Sandoza? I have no idea. If that's the best option after reviewing all the data, sure, I'm okay with it. Do I think that's great? Not really, but if that's what's best, it's what we do. I'll say this. Before Matt resigned, we had been talking, and at Grand Synod, this is before I was elected interim, we were going to do the Quorum of Prisky on Maria Sandoza at Grand Synod. That was a thing I was going to announce, so I guess this is like a first time, hey, here thing. Unless I don't get elected, someone else does, and they tell me no. But my goal is that I want to do that live. It was discussed at EC when everything went down, that the PCs are mad. What's the best thing we can do with this? Give them their shot. If there are PC Prisky, if they want to hold a Council of Prisky to judge the Inquisition and more specifically Maria Sandoza's actions, let's let them do that. Why would we stop that and say it's an untouchable NPC? NPCs are toasters. They're there to support the player's story and push the direction of a genre. If it's not doing that, you can just replace it and buy a new toaster. So it's a loaded question, in that I'm sure there's a lot going on. I know probably 10%, right, of what's going on. So I need to get all of that data, assess that data, process that data, and then look at the pathway forward. And it sounds like a cop-out, like I don't have a plan. But I don't want to just be like, oh, we're killing Maria Sandoza, I'm firing all of the current Inquisitors, we're hiring new Inquisitors, or maybe I'll make the faction NPC only. I'm not going to just make sweeping statements like that. By the way, make them NPC only is not on the table of options for me, unless some reason all of the Sabbat players wanted that, and then I'd consider it and be like, oh, really? That seems kind of lame, but okay.
So currently you're going off of both experience, gathering information, and getting the testimonies of players. Is that a correct summary of what you've said?
Yeah, and particularly Todd, because he's the Inquisition subcore, because I'm not. Like I said, I was never included in any of those correspondences with Todd and Team Inquisition. That was all segmented. The other teams under Matt, and I would say under Shane, under Jackie, they were all segmented. Inquisition always hands the Inquisition stuff. Black Hand only handles the Black Hand stuff. If you're not on those teams, you don't get to know it. Not my way of doing things, but yeah.
Because, of course, when it comes to factions and things like Warm Up by Night, there's really no way that you can please everyone. But in this particular case, I think an overhaul is somewhat necessary in order to breathe life back into the genre. I see a lot of people either being cynical, reasonably, or being very disgruntled with the current scenario. So if you have testimonials, and this is speaking to those who are watching, if you got this far, if you have testimonials or situations on the experiences with Inquisition, feel free to reach out to me and tell me about your experience. I do want to hear what you are saying and hear about what you've been through. This is divorced from the Sabbat election in general, but I would genuinely like to hear your thought, especially since Inquisition isn't super like open to newer players at the moment, and in my opinion, it needs a little bit of an overhaul. But otherwise, to shift back onto topic, another question that we got, which I didn't expect this. So we're going to talk about horophobia. Shout out to the person who asked this question. How do you feel about horophobia, which is the hatred, fear, or stigmatization of sex workers, both current and former? So apparently, this is very rampant in LARP communities and is removing, disincluding, and genuinely prejudiced. I mean, it is generally a mutually understood bad action to take, especially against those in marginalized communities. How do you plan to, both to generalize this question and to narrow in, how do you plan to take on subjects like horophobia in the Sabbat, right? Especially things that have progressively since the 2000s and the 2010s become more taboo and not accepted by players.
Yeah, so when I saw the question, I was also kind of shocked. I was like, why is that's a thing? Why is that a thing? It makes no sense to me. I'll say this. If you have a personal bias or distaste for people of a specific group of any kind, I don't care what it is, gender, religion, race, doesn't matter, what job you do. I don't want to play with you, leave. I don't care. You know, it's pretty easy to just be nice to other people and not force your opinions or thoughts on another person. You know, my mother raised me that if I don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? So, like, it's bizarre to me in a sense that, and I don't want to say this in a negative connotation, but One World by Night, in my experience, is a group of a lot of individuals that tend to be more liberal thinking and leaning than I would say conservative. I myself identify as someone that is very socially liberal and very governmentally conservative, and that I don't like how my tax dollars are spent. But when
crazy thing to get into while we're in a Sabbat Coord interim,
Adam.
It's really crazy.
But it sort of relates to my philosophy in life, which is like, hey man, if it doesn't impact me, I don't care what you do with your life. Go do whatever you want to do that will make you happy and not harm another person.
Right, but with these subjects possibly leaking out of character, is there a need to... Censor is obviously not an option, but is there a need to regulate or possibly put in more structures around this to avoid just general hate? I mean, I know like the admin team and the like court teams are working on what do you call it? Like, not bylaws, obviously, like
code of conduct,
like code of conduct rules, etc. And those tend to prop up more often in the Sabbat than other genres, which is a sweeping statement that you should not hold me to. Do you plan to approach that at all, or is this more of like a free ground? People can do what they want, so long as they're out of character situation.
I'll say that's beyond my area of expertise, right? I'm not going to pretend here and say I know what's best for a marginalized community in any way, shape, or form. I'm a straight white guy. Like, most I got is that I'm in an interracial marriage. Like, yay. I'm Italian. That's a
guy who's a homeowner who plays who plays Hammer.
Right.
Established in your introduction.
Yeah. What I'll say is this: kick them out of your game. It's pretty simple. If you run into a hate-filled individual that's just out of game being hateful, just kick them out. You don't need a code of conduct. You don't need a justification. I don't want to play with that person, or I don't want to ST for that person, is a valid response. Gaming is not a right, It's a privilege, and you can choose who you play with. I think we can all agree that nobody here wants to play with the Otzi people. I'll say Otzis, right? Like just get
people, if you will.
Just get out. I don't want to play with you. You're a terrible person. Don't play with terrible people. If someone is going to be in the game that's going to shame someone for having an OnlyFans, get out of my game. I don't want to play with you. It's pretty much that simple. But again, I'm going to leave.
You heard it here, folks. Talk to your STs. And if you're too scared to talk to your STs, talk to your player reps. If you're too scared to talk to your player reps, talk to your CMs. If you're too scared to talk to your CMs, consider therapy. I'm very worried now.
Yeah, true. But like I said, I am by no means a socio-political expert in this arena, so I would leave that to people that are far more involved in those marginalized communities that experience hate. I'm a white. If this was the early 1900s or late 1800s, I'd probably experience that hate because I'm Italian. But like, apparently the U.S. culture has moved past that. So being Italian's cool now. So like it's just. You like that?
Okay. Well, with that out of the way, let's also talk about your wider vision of the Sabbat. We had another person ask, do you feel that the Sabbat genre now is close to your vision of what Sabbat genre should be? If not, what needs to change in character or out of character? Is this what you imagined when you first got into the seed and when you left the seed, or are you still shaping into something that you want to see, or maybe not even what you want to see? Now the story's evolving independent to your view.
Yeah, another great question. I'll say when I retired, Sabbat was exactly where I envisioned it to be. It had overtaken the CAM in population numbers. I had grown the genre to be the biggest it has ever been. And I said there was nothing here left to do for me. I had accomplished everything I wanted to do. The Sabbat factions were a thing. Politics were firing like crazy. We had huge events, and I felt it was time to hand it over to the next generation. And that's not to say it's not time to hand it over to the next generation now.
Adam, terrible. Yeah, the next generation.
I left bitter and angry. No, I left very, very, very happy. I still have in my office here this hanging right here is from the last EC I went to when I was Sabbat Coord. Jackie had just become Coord, and this was given to me by all the players at the event that signed it to thank me for all the work I did in my retirement. So that obviously meant quite a bit for me. That coording's not a very often thankful job, so it's really sweet when a bunch of players thank you for doing the work. When it comes to where things are now, I will say, and I think this applies to every genre. I don't think it applies to just Sabbat. COVID changed everything. The desire and need to connect with another fellow human being meant everything moved to Discord. Everything was a lot more lax. Mages and werewolf became more common. Interactions between Anarch and Sabbat became more common. All these crossover things that used to be really taboo became the norm, and we kind of just let it happen. I don't know. In my personal opinion, I don't think that now, or that we're past COVID, that it's the best decision. I think I understand it at the time, and I'm not trying to crush on anyone's desire to do mass cross genre because they really like it. It's not my goal to do that. My goal is to focus on Sabbat, right? So I don't believe in crushing some way of playing that players enjoy, right? If you want to go do that, go do that. Go have fun. I'm not going to stop you from doing that in a micro sense, not necessarily a macro sense. I'll get to that in a second. I'm going to focus on what I think will be best for the genre, most interesting for the most amount of players, right? And so that's what I'm going to support. And because that's what a Coord supports, right, their vision, what they're doing, players will tend to flock to it. And that's not necessarily to say I'm trying to crush something else. I'm just, me personally, I'm not interested in it, right? So I'm not gonna do it. You can't force me to write something I'm not interested in. You'll never get me to write a plot for Harry Potter. Like, I'm not interested in Harry Potter. It's not one of my fandoms. Like, you pick like Star Wars, Star Trek, Warhammer, anything sci-fi, Babylon 5, I've got you all day long. But I don't want to come across as saying you're doing it wrong, because it's never, are you doing it wrong? It's maybe that game isn't for me, right? But
one of the largest benefits of the org is blood for choice, especially in the COVID. Now that we've passed COVID and some games are like fully Discord now, OWBN has been more available, at least via Discord, than ever, and that is both a great boon and terribly overwhelming, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'll say I've had a number of players talk to me about Sabbat post-COVID, right? Which is, those things are great. You have crossovers and things like that. And again, it impacts like every genre. But when it comes to Sabbat, I've had players reach out to me that they feel like Sabbat has lost some of what it is. Which is, the violence, the dark religion, these core themes. And there's a lot more, and I don't want to say humor's bad, but there's a time where it's too much comedy, and this is no longer serious, and it becomes kind of a parody of itself. And I'm not saying that happens all the time, or that's the case universally, but I can understand by watching players interact, other games, that there should be and needs to be a refocus back more into what the core of Sabbat is, I think, which we covered in like the first video, which was like this dark, monstrous religion and philosophy of exploring the beast, exploring these paths of enlightenment, exploring Rite, and what these things are, and violence, for that example. There's back in the day when there was two Sabbat debating, right, and then one of them couldn't come up with a debate retort, I watched as one of the Sabbat players went, I'm potent, I hit you with a chair, as like their like retort to their debate point. So when I say violence, I don't mean like character death, but like the Sabbat is a violent sect. It is also it's a religious cult. It is not incredibly welcoming to outsiders. It doesn't hang out with Camarines, anarchs, werewolves. It's not a thing that's in the book that they do. And that's not to say that it doesn't happen on a micro scale, right? Like, if you want to be a shady vampire that makes deals with the Camarilla, go do that. But, like, don't talk about it. Don't make it public. Don't invite a ton of other people. And then also don't be surprised when that goes badly if you get caught. It's a lot like I used to tell Infernalist PCs. If I'm not going to approve you for an Infernalist PC unless you understand and agree to the following terms, that when you get caught, not if, when you get caught and your character dies, you don't get to complain about it, because I've explained to you that's going to happen at some point. So I think
letting people have their fun, but with the consequences that come with it, right? Because honestly, as you said, deterring people from pursuing their own story is an active detriment to what OWBN is. However, the consequences you get both in character from players and in character from NPCs are your choice and your bed to lay in, and something that shouldn't be regulated or stopped. Is that the essential of what you're saying, or have I misinterpreted?
No, that's kind of on point. What I always say is it's about managing expectations, right? Like, it's never on the player's fault if their character dies because they did a thing that to the rest of us is obvious that they never knew about, right? Like, if you walk up to the prince and the Camarilla and go, you suck, freedom for all, woo, and then he like beats their ass, you shouldn't be shocked about that. But that doesn't necessarily mean the new player knows they shouldn't do that. That's what the managing of expectations is, right? Like, so if you want to play a Bahar's PC in the Sabbat, you need to manage the expectations that, again, when you're caught, you're going to lose your character over it. Play those stories, enjoy those dark stories, enjoy the journey of that character. It's not necessarily about my character needs to live forever. If you want to tell a character story where you're an evil character that gets his comeuppance, play that, but understand that's what you're playing. I think it's kind of more my point.
I gotcha. I see. Then let's move to the last question of this AMA. And honestly, this one is from me. I've dropped in a few. This 100% is from me. Why? Why do you want to be Coord again? What's the point of you being Coord again? What's brought you back, and what will have you stay? We've had Coords drop out recently, all for very reasonable reasons. What has you staying to get back into the seas, to be Sabbat Coord?
It's a good question. It's a very general question.
It is, Adam.
No. Obviously, the answer is to seize power. No.
That good Obi-Wan clout.
Yes. Not directed towards the benefit of my real life. What I'll say is this: my life is very, very stable. I like it a lot. I'm very happy in my life. I have a very good job. I have a wife that I love. I have a house that I put a lot of work into that I enjoy. So what does that mean, right? That means I have stability that I feel comfortable to come back into this, right? So, like, when I first was doing it, it was out of passion that I know the best way, and I'll show everyone. And I had, like, something to prove. I mean, again, I was 26. I don't have anything to prove to anyone this time. I don't have anything that, like, I feel the urge to that's business left unfinished. I feel like I finished everything the first time. Why this time then, right? Well, because I'm inherently a insane individual of creativity, and that even when I retired, I never stopped being creative, right? I just went to other court offices and did work there instead, or I focused inwards on my own game, and that's not to say I'm going to stop doing that now, but for me, this job, well, it is a job, is a creative outlet, right? I probably play my local game, and on occasionally, if I got a free moment and it's something I'm interested in doing, I'll do something online with one of my PCs. 90% of my time in One World by Night is already in admin positions, right? I say admin, but I say for me it's my art. This is my canvas to paint on. And that's not to say you have to accept my art or you don't know what good art is, right?
Accept my art.
It's an itch I have to scratch. Instead of getting a doctorate, I wasted my life getting a doctorate in White Wolf. So I might as well use it to some benefit to other people. And honestly, the players having fun and enjoying themselves makes me feel really good, and I like that. And it's not to say there aren't people that will hate what I do. They will be. There always are. But like I said, that thank you is a big, huge motivator, right? And so why did I come back and do it then? Because I've got new ideas. I've got new things I want to do. Like, I've had in my Google Docs 5 different revisions of the next org-wide Sabbat plot for the past 5 years. It keeps changing as I come up with new and creative ideas. Because when I ran Office, and I plan to do it again, but in 2026, if I win, is every year you need packet updates, and you need a plot for your genre, so that the players have something to talk about and interact with. And I'm not saying you got to end the world or any other that crazy stuff. Just put on a show and have, a collaborative environment and an engaging sessions. I have found in my own games experience, I've been wildly successful with that, with player growth, in that, like, hey man, this is a jam session and I'm just kind of conducting the orchestra. What do you want to do? Let's do that. Hey, we're playing Liar's Dice tonight, because that sounds great.
This shit. We're gonna play Liar's Dice, motherfucker.
That's right there. That's why I do it. To torment A. That's why I'm doing this. A is going to be super annoyed that I'm doing this, so I'm doing it. No, it's a creative itch, and I do genuinely enjoy it. It's why I don't really get burnt out. I have a very, very, very thick Italian skin, so like.
As we've established.
Yeah.
Marginalized communities, 1800s discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Things don't really bother me anymore, especially not as much as they used to, right? Like, I would pick hills that I have to die on, and then be like, I have to win this argument. Now I'll just kind of laugh and go on to something else, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day about winning every fight and winning every argument. So that kind of goes back to, like, your first question, right? Like, what would you do different? I don't need to win every argument. I don't want to be in every argument. I want to give the STs the support that they need, and I want less work, right? Like, I don't need to review every single thing on your character sheet when you ask for a request. I just need to answer like 5 questions and go, okay, this makes sense. STs, you agree? Sounds great. You're going to know better than I am. So it has come to the understanding in life in general, and this is some wisdom of the ages for you, A, that the sooner you realize you can't control everything, and therefore you should stop trying to control everything, the much happier you will be. So there's your life advice and org advice.
Oh God. Thank you, Adam, for the life advice and the org advice. I'll take it. Well, that sort of ends our AMA discussion today. I'll toss it off to you in a little bit for some last sort of words on the subject. For those at home, if you're an older player, you mostly recognize the terminology we've done today. If you're a younger player and you were very, I don't particularly blame you. Wider OWBN politics and coordinator elections and bylaw revisions are very overlooked at, as much as our CMs and our representatives try our best to make it digestible. I recommend doing your own research, talking to your friends about different things, talking to older players about their experiences. The best way to learn all of this is by talking with the people that you trust and reading it for yourself to get a better understanding. Trust me, you will not understand it on first read. And frankly, you don't really need to. Focus on having fun. You don't need to learn all of this unless you absolutely want to. But in the meanwhile, a little bit of housekeeping. The next episode that we are going to talk about is going to be related to bleeding. We have a few questions beforehand, before our recording shot the bed and got fucking thrown out of the window and started dying on the inside. We wasted like 2 hours of our lives. But if you have any more questions about bleeding, personal experiences, things you want us to discuss from a newer or older standpoint, put them in the comments, put them in the Discord. Tell us. I'm hungry for questions. Because bleed is a very, very soft point. It takes our 2 hours of discussion. A very strong soft point. And we want to elaborate as much as possible. It's one of the core things of any, not just One World by Night, but due to One World Night's dark topics, it's great to talk about. Great, enough of my spiel. I'm going to toss it back to you, Adam, for some last.
Yeah, this was actually supposed to be episode 3, because we had filmed episode 2. I got a new mic and setup, and all the audio was gone, and by the end of it, A and I had been so drained by the topic, and I mean, in a good way, but also a bad way, and that, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to talk about that. It
needs to be said, but also, good lord, also, great God, good heavens, by the queen, etc., good God.
Yeah, so that was supposed to be episode 2. This became episode 2 because elections are starting, so I needed to get this out as soon as possible. What I will say is, you didn't ask me if I believe in Joe Hendry, by the way.
I ignored that for the sake of my health. Do you want me to ask you now? Do you want me to ask you
well,
Joe Hendry?
When we're done with this, I'll show you what that is. But I absolutely believe in Joe Hendry.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna figure out what Joe Hendry is after the fucking episode.
Here's what you need to learn. Wrestling is the same exact thing as LARP. Same thing.
That it's fake?
Topic for another video, and I will explain to you, because Adam...
Everyone's weirdly horny about it? Is that the bit? Is that what we're going with?
It's not a bit!
That we had a serious, straight discussion about the future of Sabbat. We're gonna end it on wrestling as LARP?
There is one other fandom I love more than World of Darkness, and it's wrestling. And we'll get into that in another episode. I'm going to put that in the Google Docs right now, and you will understand. But other than that, I will say, much to your point, put your comments below. Do that, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications so that we can be sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
No,
we need to be sponsored.
We said the word Yahtzee. We can't fucking get sponsored anymore.
They don't judge. Raid Shadow Legends, like a good LARPer, doesn't judge.
Fuck it. We're ending this episode. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you next episode. Bye.